What if the most powerful thing you could do right now wasn't to push harder, but to surrender? So, welcome back to Voices of Impact, where we explore the stories, perspectives, and leadership journeys that reveal what becomes possible when identity, truth, and purpose come into alignment. And today's conversation is a powerful reflection on what it really means to evolve, not by adding more, but by releasing what no longer fits. And we've all been there, so have I. So I'm honored to welcome Scott Lackey to the show. Scott is an Army combat veteran, IRONMAN triathlete, inventor, author, speaker, and business change agent. But beyond the titles and achievements, his story is one of the continual reinvention, shaped by discipline, adversity, endurance, and deep personal transformation. His upcoming book, Wake Up to Die Again, which I love the title of the book, challenges a profound truth that identity expansion often requires identity death, right? You have to go through a lot of ego deaths first. And that something new cannot emerge unless something old is released, right? We're going to look at what that looks like. And that the highest form of strength is not control, but conscious surrender, right? So what makes this conversation especially aligned is what we both believe in, that growth often requires surrender before expansion. When you go through an identity transformation, it begins with release. You're not adding anything to the plate. It's actually a release. You know how you release toxins like that, right? Similar to that. Collapse can become a portal for reinvention, and strength includes knowing what to let go of, though, when it doesn't align to who you're becoming. So in this episode, we explored the space between holding on and letting go, what that looks like, and what becomes possible when we stop forcing outcomes, detaching from that, and start allowing transformation. So really getting out of your comfort zone. So Scott, welcome to Voices of Impact. Honored to have you on the show.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and I've been looking forward to this day from our initial introductory call. And I love what you're doing, especially centered around the word of authenticity. So thank you for allowing me on your platform. And again, I'm thankful to have this conversation today. So thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Let's get into it. And of course, I'm all about authenticity. That's what I'm passionate about. And that's who I am. Right. So Scott, your journey spans the combat, endurance, athletics, invention, and entrepreneurship, which is amazing. How have these experiences reshaped your understanding of identity?
I'm going to approach that from a high level perspective to put it in context, since we're early in the show.
Yeah.
All those things that you named, and and again, sometimes I call them scoreboard moments, right? Highlight reels. You could add Scott's a columnist in a newspaper. Right. There's other things that you could add to that. And I'm only stretching the scoreboard moments for this reason, is that as I went through all of those moments, if you will, through my life, it wasn't the success that actually taught me who I am as a person. It was all of the failures that either led up to some of those moments or all the failures that happened after I walked across the stage or got the medal or won the business deal. Right. So it's not the event itself. It's not the medal. All right. So when you transition through all those moments, and that's honestly how I came up with the title of my book, which is Wake Up to Die Again, is all of those transitions throughout all of those, what would normally be thought of as a success story.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not about the end outcome. It's really about the journey, right? It's, first of all, sometimes we think of it as failures, but it's actually lessons, right? And those transitions make you learn so much. I used to think like, oh my God, why am I going through this? And that's when you actually take the pain and turn it into power and purpose, right? Yeah. So I love how you said that. It really shaped, the challenges really shaped you into the amazing man you're today.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, which is very, inspiring to everyone who's listening, because, these things are rare, right? So going into, we talked about at what point did you realize that growth wasn't just about discipline or effort, but about release and reinvention? And what are some things that you had to release to get to this breakthrough today?
Sure. I can never say about most of the things that I talk about that I remember, not all of them, but most of them that I can say I remember a point. Right. I remember what I like to call all the lightning strikes in my life where, there was shock and instant change in my life. I certainly remember all of them, as we all do, but I can't point to one, single event where I go, wow, I was just transformed into the Scott Lackey you see today. I like to describe it differently. And I love the book analogy, is that every single event in my life was just, and this is no new news, right? But it was a chapter.
Right.
right? Some people refer to it as seasons.
Yeah.
Okay. And I like the analogy of chapters because, right, there's really only 4 seasons, aren't there? So
Right.
depending on where you live, but I like the idea of chapters. And so it was these various, chapters in the book. And it wasn't really until after some of the dark chapters, if you will, in my life that you keep showing up, you keep putting in the work, you keep achieving. And I say sometimes I kept arriving at these places, these mountaintops or these beautiful valleys or these plateaus, figuratively speaking. I would arrive there and there was nobody there but me.
Exactly.
And, you begin to look at yourself and go, man, what am I doing wrong? Everybody else is on a mountaintop and, everybody, and what is the old saying that the comparison is the thief of joy, I
Right.
think?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd never heard that before in my life at that time, but I was absolutely comparing. And so to fast forward through many chapters of my life, I'm going to tell you another quick story because you asked the question, what did I have to surrender? And I'm going to give you one of my first really big experiments that I did with myself. And I do remember, by the way, the moment that this happened that led me to do this experience. So here's the story. And I won't give you the long version. The listeners will get this. But in my office, my business office, the walls were littered with medals, from races and certificates and letters from people and pictures. And, I used to call it the I love me wall. Okay. And I didn't mean that in a negative way. It's just like, here are all the things that I've accomplished and I want to show them off. And invariably, I had so much up there that when people would visit and I would have business meetings, it was a pretty big office and we would have meetings in the office and people would spend an unusual amount of time looking at all of these things on the wall like they were museum pieces, like we were rolling through a museum and they were learning stuff. And invariably, I would get the questions and, wow, you did that. I've always wanted to do this. And, the normal stuff. But one day, and I don't know why this happened, but one day I'm watching people, 3 people, as a matter of fact, go through all of the walls and asking all these questions about the plaques. And I'm sitting there and I go, man, what is it you're trying to prove to them with all this stuff?
Yeah.
That hit me.
Right.
And I could not get away from that thought. And after that meeting was over with, later that afternoon, I took every single thing off the walls. There was nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in a box and took it home. Yeah. Next day, my employees were like, what's wrong with Scott? Where did all the stuff go? And they asked me, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm going to put other stuff up here one day. I just don't know what yet. But I will say this, the only thing I left in my office was a family picture of my wife, my son, and my daughter. That was it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And here's the bottom line to why I'm telling you this. This is what's important for the listeners. This is the key takeaway. What I ultimately figured out is that there was something inside me that was missing, that was unfulfilled, and that I needed those things to convince people of what I wanted them to think about me because I didn't think that about myself. Yeah. That was the net result. So that was what I ended up surrendering. And by the way, that was many, many years ago. And if you were to go into my office today, this very second, the only thing you'll find in my office at work is a picture of me and my family.
Yeah. Wow. And thank you for sharing that. I think that's really inspiring, how you really went in and you were self-aware and everything. I'm pretty sure any listener can relate. And I can speak to this as well. Because when you're leading with achievement, and this is the exact same question I was asking, we were talking with someone after, before this, and I was in that same boat, right? And I was writing my book about it. And I was like, I was leading with all these titles and awards, and I was a 15 award winning. I would post it everywhere, and people would be like, hey, Venus, this high achiever, all this stuff. And she's a superstar. And then I was thinking to myself, I come from a background where I don't know, some people just always kept putting me down, right? And yeah. I was like, I need to prove it, that I can be smart. I need to prove my worth. I need to prove that I'm the smartest person in the room. And to myself, I was thinking later, like, why am I proving something? Like, what does that mean? Yeah. Right. And actually, it just hit me like 3 years ago. And I was like, this is, and that I can totally relate to what you're saying. You have to that's just where that didn't make me feel fulfilled. There was something always missing. And I think to our point is we're always chasing after something that's never going to be giving us happiness. And when we're leading with those titles and achievements, right? That's the major message here.
I'd love to share this, and because that is a beautifully succinct way to say it. And I'd like to flip the coin for just a moment, because if I were a listener right now, a question I would have is, well, okay, then if you don't have anything on the wall, what's the conversation then?
Hmm.
And so that was the next layer of the onion, or the next chapter in the book, was what I began telling myself is, you know what, Scott? If your behavior, the words you speak, and the actions you take are not enough to convince people of who you say you are, you're the problem.
Right.
Not them, you are. And then that led me to another little layer of the onion and another chapter of the book, which was, wow. So if I no longer have the medals on my wall, and I have to wrestle with no longer caring about that and no longer worrying about the medals, the awards telling the story. And now I've got to convince people through my behavior, not what I say, but my behavior, that I am who I say I am. Is there another level underneath that? Sure is. Now, ultimately, the only person that I had to prove my worth to, there was only one person left, and it was me.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when I started trusting myself again and proving to myself, that you are who you say you are, and I did believe, when I got back to that place, oh my God, what a life-changing event. Then I didn't need all of that anymore. And I've lived that way for so many years now, I don't even know that person from then. So
Yeah, I love that. And it's the old version of you, right? And that's how you become a better version of you, is you peel the layers of the onion, right? And that's where sometimes we call it the ego death. And the more you release it, there's a new version of you, which is the rebirth.
100%. And every time it's like turning over rocks and looking underneath them, it's like, oh, that's not supposed to be there,
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone thinks in order to be successful, or the person you want to be, you want to add, and we talked about this, right? You talked about
Yeah.
attraction.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to do more. I have to take the certificate. I have to do like PhD or MBA. It's not, right? And I love what you said. It's not about the titles. It's who you are at the core. And only you know that not everyone should be peeling the layer for you. You need to do that for yourself, right? And
it is honestly less painful if you do it for yourself than letting other people do it for, because when they expose you,
exactly,
then that insecurity comes screaming up into your head, and that little voice that says, I told you so.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's where for me it started, because people were telling me, and I was like, I think I need to look at it for myself, right? And I need to
Yep.
do my inner work and my inner
Yep.
healing. And it's been transformative. And to your point, people were like telling me, like, hey, who you are is enough. And sometimes what happens is we don't believe it, right?
Yep.
We don't believe it due to all of this conditioning, right? Societal conditioning, family conditioning. It
Yep.
can even go back to the ancestral thing. And
Yeah.
you're like, is this really me? Like, is that enough?
Yeah.
Right. And to my next question, how would you overcome saying, like, wait a minute, like, who I am, what my behavior is that enough? Because I thought I'm supposed to be doing more. Like, how would you navigate it? Because our brain always says those noises and it gives us those answers that society's told us to do. But how do we really go back and listen to ourselves and our intuition?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. And it's a really important question, because now we're talking about the how. And
Yeah.
so let's do the easy one first. People in your life, in your sphere of influence, that are telling you what you need to do with your life.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be maybe controversial, maybe painful, but you need to stop listening to them.
Right.
They have absolutely no consequences for telling you what to do. And then you go do it, or some version of it, and it doesn't work. And then you beat yourself up. And it wasn't even your decision. It's absolutely insanity.
Right.
And by the way, I mastered that skill when I was in college.
Amazing.
With my very first invention, I mastered the skill of doing what many, many people told me to do. And it just created disaster after disaster. And I didn't blame them, because I was like, wow, these are really smart people.
Yeah.
What did I do wrong?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's number one. The second one is actually more important and much harder to do. And nobody wants to talk about this. And it's a real easy sentence. Stop negotiating with yourself. Stop. Well, who is yourself? It's exactly what you just said. It's the voice in your head that says the morning you were supposed to get up and go on the run that you promised, or the walk, or to run the early morning errand, whatever it was, that said, hey, it's cloudy outside. The wind's blowing and it's a little cold, and just sleep in that extra 30 minutes. You need it. You've been doing great.
Right.
And you go, okay. And you do it. We only have two voices in our head. I mean, people like to say, well, we have the anger voice. We have this voice. That. Yeah. I'm sorry. Two voices, the bad one and the good one. Okay. Only one of them can be in charge. And every listener that will ever hear this podcast knows exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. That voice that tells us to do the things that we know we shouldn't be doing. But what do? We negotiate with it.
Mhm.
And when you do that, you're the loser every single time. You, that human being in your body, the one that you're looking at in the mirror every day, is the loser, not somebody else, not some third party. Well, I shouldn't say that. You're the primary loser. The secondary losers are your family, your boyfriend, your wife, your children, your neighbors, your colleagues at work, right? Because when you're not the best version of yourself, if you're not pursuing that, if you're not surrendering the things that you don't need to carry forward, if you don't do those things, yes, you suffer the most because you have to live with yourself. But what you never understand, I don't think people understand, is that you make everybody else suffer with you. And that's one of the things I love about not negotiating with myself. By the way, that doesn't mean I'm perfect. I don't make all the right decisions. And yes, I still fail and I get up over again. I still do all those things. But I do not negotiate with myself when I make a commitment to do something. And that has changed me, changed my life trajectory, changed my DNA, changed me as a human being by not negotiating with myself. And that is really a hardcore truth that I hope more people would grasp and wrestle with.
Yeah, absolutely. Love these points. And I love how you just really like did not negotiate with yourself, right? And I do agree. And there are people, especially coming from a woman and a woman of color, we tend to get approval from our parents because that's how
Mm,
we were raised. And to everyone listening who struggles with that, and I was talking to so many women today and they were like, this person said this, I'm going to follow that. And I was like, what is your gut telling you? What is your intuition telling you? What do you want? What is your soul wanting? And I did that for a long time. I still did it. And my partner asked me the same thing. He was like, why do you need your parents' approval? Like, why are they influencing you? And at first, to be honest, it was triggering. And when you go through this ego death or this identity transition, I'm going to be very honest. It is triggering in the beginning because you're going through that, right? This is very normal. But at the same time, it's like, he's right, though, right? And then you have to see what are those wounds that are coming up. Like, is
yep.
it an attachment wound? Is it an abandonment wound? It comes from the mother, it comes from the father. So you really have to go dig deeper and do the work, right? And like to your point, every time I listen to my parents or someone else other than me, and I believe in God or whatever universe, whoever believes in that, it never went anywhere. I was always miserable. I suffered. And then when I listened to myself and to God, who I really believe I had faith, then everything just worked out. Right. So
Yep.
you have to.
You're in good company because I am a deep believer, I guess you say, in God and faith and
Yeah.
how that operates in my life. And it wasn't always that way. And it wasn't that I was never a non-believer.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't have a relationship. I was just like a leaf. I like to say a leaf blowing in the wind. Wherever the wind went, that's just where I went. And so I knew there was this God out there. I didn't know he had a name. I didn't know what that meant. But in all of these chapters in the book, that we started out talking about, I've said this before, that in all of these chapters, when the story ended in that chapter, there was always somebody there waiting on me to get there every single time. And I didn't figure out who that was and what that meant for a long time. And so maybe that was the purpose. I'm always here. You know what I mean? Waiting on you to figure it out,
Right. Right. Absolutely. And it's like the other side of the breakthrough, and
Yeah.
when I went to coaches, there was always a fear, right? That was like, should I do this? Should I get out of my comfort zone? Should I start becoming a better version of me? And my coach would always tell me, look at the other side. There's that breakthrough. And I had to visualize it. And that's part of this transition that I want
It
to
is.
share is
Yeah.
how do you get from the survival you, the old habits, the fearful you, to the thriving version of you, right? To the breakthrough, to your best version is, of course, going through those deaths and rebirths, but shifting it consistently. And that's also another question I had, that sometimes a lot of people, including me, and I just mastered this right now, but 6 months ago, I was like going back to okay, let me go back to corporate. Maybe this is not my purpose. I was always like soul, mind, and especially for like high achievers. So how would you navigate that and master it quickly? I mean, of course, you have to go through your pace, but master it in a way that, no, I'm listening to my intuition, my heart, I'm going with it. Even though I don't know what it looks like, there's a lot of uncertainty. The
Yeah.
reality isn't showing up yet.
Man, isn't that the $1 million question, right? Or $10 million question for everybody is. So if I'm gonna rephrase it and put it in Scott speak,
Yeah.
okay? Only because I want to make sure I'm answering your question, because this is an important question. Okay, Scott, I've heard everything you just said about negotiating with myself and influences, and I get it. Chapters of the book, got it. explain to me how I'm supposed to know if what I'm doing is the right direction, right? Should I stay? Should I continue on and just deal with the adversity? Should I turn left? Should I turn right? Right? All this uncertainty, right? That's kind of what you asked. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Well, congratulations. The answer to the question is if you have that degree of uncertainty in your life, turn left, turn right, wake up, go to sleep, don't know, should I, would I, could I? If that's where you are, my congratulations to you is that you're in the place that I write about in my book, which is called the middle. You're in the middle. Well, what does the middle mean? What does that mean? What the middle means is that you're too far away from where you started that you can't get back there anymore because really you're lost.
Mm-hmm.
And you're too far away from where you think you want to be to even know how to get there. That's where the uncertainty comes from. That's my answer to myself of when I find myself in the middle. And I actually what I call it is not the middle. I call it the fiery middle.
Yeah.
And I call it the fiery middle because it's in the middle when you're too far away from where you came from and too far away from where you're going. That's where life will burn away all the things that you cannot take with you moving forward if you're willing. But this is where so many people stay stuck in life, is in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we want to stop calling it the fiery middle or the middle, staying lost.
Yeah.
Too far to return, too far to go forward. So we meander. That's the word. We wander. I see these bumper stickers sometimes. Not all who wander are lost. Well, how cute.
Yeah.
You know, I get it. But I really want to establish that context to the listener that if you reframe where you are on the map of the world in life of being in the fiery middle, well, at that point, any step you take in any direction is a new direction in any direction. Okay. So that's how you, I guess the first answer to your question is that's where you are. Now I think the other part was, well, how do I navigate out of that? Okay. Well, we talked earlier about some of the skills about not negotiating with yourself and doing what other people tell you. But one of the things that I refer to, or I speak about in my book, and I did this for myself, this is lived experience, what I'm talking about now, is one of the reasons you're lost is because you've lost trust and faith in yourself. And you arrived there because you broke so many promises to yourself. And you know what they are. These aren't the ones you tell mom and dad about, not even the ones you tell your best friends about, but you know them. Yeah. You know every promise you broke to yourself, and you know the big ones too. And so if you want to get out of the fiery middle, you need to sit down with yourself, possibly with a journal. It's what I did. It was a powerful tool. You can combine that with meditation, with just thinking about these things and really getting your arms or your mental arms around what you're wrestling with, these broken promises. But they'll come to the surface. If you'll look inside yourself, your broken promises to yourself. I don't want to talk about anybody else. I don't care about them. I care about you. So if you'll assess those broken promises within yourself, then you need to pick from that pool of choices of the one or two or three that you want to change, and you want to restore faith in yourself, that you can trust yourself again. Now, what I did in one point in my life, when I did this, I went and picked the big, hairy, ugly, scary thing, and I did it, which was my first IRONMAN race, 140.6 mile race. Not recommending that for others. Everybody's different. But I will tell you my big recommendation is not that you go pick an Ironman or go climb, whatever. My big recommendation is actually not sexy. My big recommendation is how you get out of the fiery middle is lily pads. Think of lily pads. Is you need to take small baby steps where you make a promise to yourself and you take a step and you honor that promise. You make another promise to yourself, you take a baby step, you honor that promise. And I mean simple stuff like, okay, tomorrow morning, I'm committed to getting up at 5 a.m. and I don't know what in the crap I'm going to do. I might clean house, but I'm getting up at 5 a.m. Yeah. And guess what? At 5 a.m., when that voice tells you, don't start today, start on Saturday, stupid. When that voice shows up, put your feet on the floor and stand up and say, no, I'm not arguing with you today. I'm not negotiating with you today. Mm-hmm. I made a promise that today I'm getting up at 5 a.m. And you get up. And I don't care what you do, you get up and you stay up. Okay. And so I'll give you one other example. When you do that little small thing, some people may be listening right now and go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Maybe it is for you. Maybe that's not where you are. But I can tell you right now, there are millions of people right now that can't even do that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I hope that wasn't too long of an answer, but that's really important.
Yes.
Really, really important to understand where you are, how you got there, and some very practical things that you can do to actually start regaining trust with yourself so that you can change your life. And by the way, it doesn't require anybody else. It's you.
Exactly. Yeah. I love what you just said. I'm very straight to the point. And yeah, it's simple, but it's not that simple at the same time.
No.
Like you said, it's very difficult to just take that first step. Because
Can I just say one other thing?
yeah,
There's some people right now that we know where they're battling their weight.
yeah,
Okay.
totally.
I'm not even going to tell you what to eat. I'm not going to tell you to work out. I'm going to tell you anything. I'm just going to give you one rule. No more food after 6 o'clock at night. You do whatever you want all day long. But from 6 o'clock, not another morsel across those lips. It's harder than you
It's
think.
hard. It's hard. Yeah,
I know it is. So anyway, it's just you pick your lily pad, but it's at the end of the day, promises kept, promises broken. Think about it.
exactly. I love how you framed it as broken promises.
Yep.
That's like a really interesting thing, and yeah, exactly. It's a promise to yourself, and we call it a commitment to yourself.
That's correct.
And
There's many ways to say it.
yeah,
But I like for me, it resonates with me to use the word, promise, because a promise should be something, it really should be something sacred.
yeah, exactly.
Maybe like a handshake used to be.
Right. Those were like very important back then, right? Just a handshake, and it meant a lot. So,
It did.
and we
We
think of
need more of that.
yeah, we think of promises as we give a promise to our family and, our husbands and wives, but we don't look at it within ourselves. So what does that mean? Commit to our growth,
100%.
to ourself. And I love how you reframed that, because that's also something that I'm also learning, because I do it for other people.
Yeah.
But am I committed to my own growth? Do I show up? And what does that mean? Commitment to
Mhm.
yourself is showing up even if no one shows up for you, which
Amen.
literally no one has supported me many times, but I still
Yep.
showed up even if it was hard. And I love what you said about having faith in yourself and God, right? And I want to also touch on this when we talk about releasing and surrendering.
Yeah.
I was talking to a woman this morning, and she was like, I struggle to kind of surrender. I'm trying to understand what that means. And I told her, I was like, letting go of an outcome, right? So detaching from an outcome, like it starts from within, that unconditional love. So I would love to hear it from you. What does that truly look like if someone were to say surrender and let go of your old habits? How does that look like in practical everyday life, though?
Well, I think we should start by, defining surrender. Surrender is one of those tricky words like vulnerability, right? People think vulnerability is, they're going to see me curled up in my bed or in the floor crying, because of, no, that's not, that means you need counseling, okay? Or you need help. But I say that about vulnerability because people with the stigma, maybe I should say the stigma attached to surrender is viewed as extraordinary weakness. To surrender, they say, is equal to giving up. And, no, not exactly. And I'm not trying to be semantical here, but give up has its own meaning and surrender has its own meaning. That's why they're two different words. Okay. So when in the context, so when I'm talking about surrender, giving up is just a component of surrender. Being vulnerable is actually a component of surrender. Are you following me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to make sure the audience understands that is that to surrender things, it's all of that rolled up in a giant ball.
Mhm.
It's not weakness. And I'm not going to be able to convince you of that, but I'm just going to say it. And the way that looks in my life is it comes in the form of a question that I came up with during my Ironman training, early in my Ironman training. And it has served me well. And I continue to use this weekly in my life. The single question, which is, Scott, what are you willing to sacrifice? So everything I do, right? So when I started the Ironman race, I'll tell you what, let's forget the Ironman race. Let's go to the most recent, writing my book. Before I started writing my book, I asked myself the question, okay, Scott, you're getting ready to write a book. What are you willing to sacrifice to write this book? And everybody listening right now is going, I know the answer to that. You're going to have to sacrifice time and you're going to have to sacrifice this and that. No, I had all the same answers you're thinking about. As a friend of mine once said, he said, those are vanilla answers, Scott.
Yeah.
What's the real answer?
Right.
What are you willing to sacrifice? And I keep harping on this because I want that to resonate in everybody's mind. What are you willing to sacrifice? Because it came to me one day and it scared the hell out of me. And the answer to the question was, Scott, you're going to have to sacrifice yourself. Well, what does that mean? That means if you're truly going to write a book called Wake Up to Die Again that is authentic, then what are the words that are the underpinnings of authenticity? Surrender, vulnerability, giving it up, and the list goes on. And so that was the answer to the question. That was the answer to surrender, to vulnerability, is that I was going to have to give up myself. What does that look like? That was the question. What does that look like? What that looks like is me telling you a story in the book about a childhood health passport that I invented and had my life savings into it and my wife's blood, sweat, and tears and prayers and family money, investor money. Only that this was my first patented invention, childhood health passport. only to be the business plan to be funded for $3 million. And 6 months later, the investors, the private equity firm, fired me and the management team and took everything and ran off with the company. So what? You mean, Scott, in your book, you just lay that out in great detail about how you emotionally had to deal with that? I sure do. Sure do. I relived every moment of that in my brain so that I could write the book in authenticity and tell you vulnerably how that impacted me driving home that day to my pregnant wife with my pregnant wife with my daughter and my 2.5-year-old son. I walk right through the middle of it. That's what it looks like, is being honest with yourself. And in some cases, honest with people around you of, hey, this is who I am right now or then, or whatever you want to call it. So when you ask the question, what does that look like? I love the example of my book because every beta reader that has read it, my book has published now. And, I'm getting messages from people that have gotten 6, 8 chapters in. I got a message from one guy that said, I'm 8 chapters into this. You've had me laughing and crying. I have to put the book down. I got to process this. Right. So that's again, another long answer. I'm sorry, but I have to give you that long answer to put this in context of that's what it looks like with yourself. Again, I'm not pointing to anybody else. I don't want you doing that with anybody else. I think the value is doing it with yourself. Because when you fix you, if it requires surrender, if it requires vulnerability, if it requires all that, here's another word that you're not considering. And you almost touched on it a second ago. Let me give you another word another supporting word that's inside surrender is you need to look yourself in the mirror and all those broken promises we talked about earlier. You need to forgive yourself. You've forgiven everybody else for God knows what, but you won't forgive yourself. So that's what it looks like for me in the real life is I don't walk around here in my life, my day-to-day life now. I'm not mad about anything. I'm not have anything left to forgive myself about. I mean, we're past all that. And that's why I was able to write the book vulnerably and honestly and transparently is because now I get to use the story as a testimony to tell everybody who hasn't found their way out right now. That's the beauty of the story.
Right.
And honestly, that should be one day the beauty of your story. And so last thing I'll say on this is, and I have this in the book, I say this in the book and I talk about this in detail at the very beginning of the book. Don't hide your scars.
Yes.
Right. Your scars are evidence of what tried to kill you and failed.
Wow. This is so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And as mentioned before, like it's really having that painful experiences, but living through that and turning into power and purpose and writing a book about it and sharing that message for everyone. Right.
Yep.
I love what you said about surrender and the different parts of surrender. It is vulnerability. And a lot of people think it's a weakness, it's a strength. And that was actually my next question that you answered was, what's the true definition of strength, right? Is really stripping away and that ego.
Yeah.
And being like, this is who I truly am. And in a world full of facades and that, which I've been there, done that. I'm surrounded by people who always be like, this is not me. There's a flaw. I don't want to show it. It's very rare and powerful to see someone like you who's sharing these vulnerable stories, right? And you're also giving permission to others to hey, this is, you share yours. Like, this is a safe space. And you know how beautiful that is in this day and age, because I see a lot of people with that facade and not many people are authentic.
No. This is a rarity and I'm not bragging about it. It's just rare. It's just, I think it's the truth. I think social media proves that it's the truth. It's hard to even watch, and I'll tell you another quick story of how when you hit the center mass of somebody who's hurting inside. This was accidental, but I won't say where I was, but I was at a location and passing a gentleman and I said, hey, how's your morning going? And he said, living the dream. And I stopped because I can't stand that word or phrase, living the dream. And I stopped but this was an honest question. I don't know why I stopped. Maybe it triggered me, I guess, but I stopped and I said, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? And this is me and you talking. I really want to know the answer, but what does that actually mean for you to be living the dream? I mean, that's such a cool phrase. What does it mean? And man, his facial expression changed. The head tilted. He gave me the dog tilt, and said, look, dude, I don't know where that question's coming from, but it's just a phrase. It's just an expression. I said, oh, okay. I was just curious because, you said it and it made me think. And do you mind if I ask you one more question? Just out of curiosity, if you really were living a dream, what would your life look like? And I got an angry look. And then I got the following comment. I don't know where you're going with this. And I don't know what your problem is, but I got things to do. And he walked by me. I think that hit home. That wasn't my intention.
Right.
Right. It was an honest question. But we all know people like this. Matter of fact, maybe I'm talking to somebody right now who's listening to this.
Right.
Okay. And that wasn't my intent, but my hope is that if you feel that way, and again, don't look at me, look at yourself and try to identify that space inside you that reacted to that. What is it that's there? So food for thought.
Yeah. And it goes back to my previous thing about the triggering, right? He probably was triggered because he wasn't facing his truth. And I think some people go into avoidance and they distract themselves. But in reality, you have to face your own fears and your truth in order to get that breakthrough moment. And that's
100%.
and surrender is the true thing. I think the main message is the true fulfillment comes from doing the inner work, and you use that pain into power and you turn that into adversity and you share it with others. And that's the real happiness and the real fulfillment, right?
Yep. 100%.
It's not the achievement, the titles. You and I, we both have so many titles. It's great. It's amazing. And we're proud, right? Of course we should be proud and we deserve that. But the true happiness, I've talked to many people who you just explained, I've been part of that and I still do. And I'm the kind of person who speaks the truth, right? And to your point, it might come across differently. It depends, right? Some people like it. Some people are like, hey, Vina, like, why are you doing this and all of that?
Yeah.
But I'm just pointing out a truth for you to become a better version. Maybe will motivate you.
Yeah.
And for you to just understand that it's okay to be real with yourself, right? We're all being real and there's no need for a facade, but
it doesn't require, if you're going to be real with yourself, there's no requirement that you share that with everybody else. Go fix you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so honestly, for 10 years, I went into hermit mode. I was just by myself. And a lot of people were like, hey, where's Vina? Like, she won't talk to me. And I was like, and also
I'm busy. I'm working.
And it's another thing. You don't need to answer to everyone. If they're like, hey, Vina, like, you didn't answer my call. Oh my God, you're not a good friend. It's okay. Like, they don't understand your journey.
Nope.
You need to
and don't try to explain it.
Yeah. I just did not explain. I was like, if you want to think I'm like shit or whatever, like, fine, think that way. I'm doing me and I know why I'm doing it. I need to work on myself and going through my personal, professional, spiritual growth. This is between me and God or whatever. And
a lot of people don't understand this. And I didn't understand this, but we think that because we're really close to certain people that we're on the same journey together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, no. You could walk the same road with each other, okay, for year after year. And you're going to find out that why is it that you're on the same road together, but people keep getting different results than you do?
Right.
It's because your destination's different.
Exactly. And I love how you touched on this because the past 1 or 2 years, for example, I had a best friend for 3-4 years. We were so close. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. Like, we just outgrown each other. And immediately my thing was the ego, right? Like, oh my God, she doesn't like me anymore, all of that stuff, right? That's what most people do as women, right? We get so emotional about it and we get defensive. And I thought to myself, wait a minute though, like, I'm growing, I'm evolving, and I'm going to outgrow those people who are not on the same journey as me. And I reframed it. I was like, that's interesting. And I want to go a little deeper into this because a lot of people kind of left my journey and it just didn't work out. And I took it sometimes in a personal way when I realized, like, actually, it's a good thing. They're just no longer aligned to who you're becoming, right? You're growing fast. You're going on a journey. They're not going to come with you, and not everyone's going to come with you, and that's okay. And sometimes we get defensive because we have these wounds, what we call like attachment wound, and you have to go deeper into that and overcome it. And that was something that I had to go through, right? I was like, why? And that's part of the surrender.
It
is attachment. And I couldn't surrender for a long time. I couldn't let go of control. That was a major issue that I've had for a long time. And I was like, if I overcome this, I know my breakthrough's right there.
Yep.
But why can't I? And I had to like really journal. And I was like, okay, there's an attachment wound from someone. And I had to go through that. I'm like, why am I attached? Right? Am I truly happy with this person? Is it really aligned? And I kept telling myself alignment over attachment. So anyone who I would talk to or situation, I would ask myself, and this is a tool that I want to share with the listeners, is are you aligned with this person, or is it more of like, are you attached? Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
knowing the difference made me realize, because I was attached to many people, but we weren't aligned in the same
Yeah.
life path and direction. And I
Yeah.
was like, no, we're not aligned. So let me move out of this. And that's how the better things felt,
Yeah.
internally. And I was like, wow, my reality changed. And now I have very aligned people in my life, and the right people are supporting me and
Yeah.
loving me. And you
Yeah.
just have to let go of those wounds, right? And really going within. So I wanted to kind of share that as well.
No, I love the analogy. I am in absolute alignment with that. It's so fascinating as here we are. We're two people that have never met before other than, like this. And we say things completely differently through our lived experience, but they're exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
The beauty of the English language is that we can use completely different words to describe a lived experience, right? And be in exact alignment. And that's what I love about, people's own lived experience. It's painful for me for people to tell me about somebody else's story and what I should think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know how many people have come to me on this podcast? They just met me for like 20 minutes and they were like, like, you get me. Like, we're in, like, you just speak my language. And I'm like, same here. Because every person I talk to doesn't understand what identity shifts are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you were like, hey, like, I went through this ego death. And I'm just like, do you really understand this too? Right. And there's a reason why we're on this call today. And I totally agree. It could be just a lived experience. And we both believe in God, faith, and that's why we're here. And that's why the universe brings us together.
I believe that.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we look at the nitty-gritty details, but we have similar missions, and that we're serving our divine assignment, which is to come on this call and share it and make an impact, even if it's one person listening.
It
Because
doesn't matter.
I know there's a lot of people listening to this
Yeah.
and thinking, I can't believe what you just said. Like,
Yeah.
I'm living it too. It's not about writing content and frameworks and all of that stuff on a podcast, right? Because every podcast I listened to was all about the same thing. And I was like, who talks about the stuff that I've been through, though?
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Some of it's just noise, though.
It is. I was like, I'm not going to start a podcast that's just like other people about AI and tech, right? These are real things. I'm a raw, real person. And that's also another thing. I lead from my own values. I value authenticity. I value real. I was always like this when I was a kid. I've always been around inauthentic people, but I still stayed true to myself.
Yeah.
I was honest with myself. And that's where I'm here today, right?
I can't say that I did that, but I am here today. I learned my lesson.
Yeah. And you have to go through so many lessons, and it's part of the journey. And I have another question for you, just one more. That one person was telling me this morning, she was like, yeah, but what if that we call it liminal space or the messy middle, it's, for me, I had to reframe it into God is preparing us. It's a preparation. Even now, I keep asking myself, why is it taking this long? For me, it's taking 10 years to get to that. And how would you help someone navigate if it's taking like 10 years in that middle? And it's like, you say it's preparation, but this long, like, I can't stay like this for this long. I'll just go back to my old ways. How would you navigate it if it's like such a long journey, though?
Yeah. Well, first I'm going to say, I'm going to ask a question, or maybe I'll make a statement. How about that? I'll make a statement. Is God has all the time in the world.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah. Right, Joe.
And that's why we have an awareness of this clock. Okay. And what you feel like, there's endless stories of people talking about, I've waited 10 years and then I got pregnant. I waited, or longer. I waited X number of years and finally got married. Or, there's just endless stories. And to me, the absolute wrong question to ask is why. This is just me. I'm just telling you for real. You will not find me asking that question. I despise that question.
Yeah.
It wouldn't.
True.
As a matter of fact, if I could give you the answer, you wouldn't believe it if I could give it to you. And then, there are stories in the Bible like this, where when Jesus was alive and people said, show us signs, show us this, do that, he was doing it endlessly.
Yeah.
And people were watching it. Physically, they're watching it. You're a liar. So I'm sorry, I think there's a biblical answer to that. And I think there's a true answer to that, is that it's not about why. And if we gave you the answer, you wouldn't believe it anyway. You'd have all these excuses, all these buts and ifs and thens and therefores, right? So I beat that up enough to come back to what I believe the real answer is, that for me and what I write about in my book. And there's an entire chapter devoted to this, as a matter of fact. And the title of the chapter is that the gifts are in the pain.
Exactly.
And what that means is that success taught me absolutely nothing but failure. But failure is what actually gave me the gifts of everything I needed moving forward. So if you are in the middle, or in this 10-year time span, whatever it is that you think you're waiting on, there are gifts happening all around you that you're missing and you're wasting and you're denying and you're running from. And I just deeply encourage you to embrace exactly where you are. That's the biggest gift you can give to yourself, is to embrace exactly where you are, because you're getting gifts out of this you don't even know.
Exactly. Wow. That's very well said. Yeah. And it's true, right? And a lot of people are like, why am I waiting? But in that waiting period, actually, someone told me, and they were like, don't think of it as waiting. Think of it as like, you're just evolving, you're growing, right? And in that growing, you're knowing more of your gifts.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair to say. But I mean, it's also, I'm going to use material possessions if I can for a second. I have an endless sea of stories of things that I thought if I could get, the second I got it, I made it, or I will be fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why I hate this question of why. It's like material possessions.
Right. Yeah.
You dreamed and fantasized of the motorcycle, of the trip to Fiji, of being in shape again, having the weight you were in high school, whatever it is. If I could just get that one more taste of who I was or what I want, the investment, the car, the house, the friend, the dress, it's just endless, right? And again, I've done a lot of these things,
right,
and I got there and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's nobody there. If you go for the wrong reasons, there's nobody there. And so to me, it is an ego. That's why I so dislike the question of why for myself, is because it doesn't matter why. Because if I answer it, then I'm going to go off to something else.
Right. Right.
So there's no fulfillment there. I just feel like you're wasting time. And you asked a question that I'm passionate about. So that's why I feel like I'm on a soapbox preaching. I don't mean to be, but it's just, I don't think it's an unanswerable question. It doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, I do agree. It doesn't matter. I love how you said just being first of all, it's a gift, and being in the present. You know how many times people are like future or past?
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
I'm sorry, I have to do this. Another section in my book. This was a discovery for me. You've heard the saying before, carpe diem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Seize the day, for those who don't know. Carpe diem, seize the day. Do you know that nobody told us the rest of the sentence? That's not all of it. It's shocking. It's still shocking to me when I read it and I discovered it when I was writing my book. I can't pronounce, I'm not a Latin student, but I can't pronounce the rest of it. But I remember the translation. But the entire sentence, the true complete sentence, is seize the day, seize the day, thinking as little of tomorrow as possible.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God.
Nice.
Why did you not tell me that part?
Exactly.
Right? Well, because carpe diem sounds great and seize the day sounds great. And it fits on a bumper sticker. Okay. But caring as little about tomorrow as possible is a critical tool to you and to me and to everybody else.
Right.
It doesn't mean you don't think about tomorrow. It's not what I said. I said caring about tomorrow. It's okay to think about tomorrow and to plan and to have visions of what you want to become. It's okay to do that. Just don't live there, because there's nothing there, right? Every single possibility that is available to you on this little blue planet is in today, right now.
Yeah.
Not 10 minutes ago, it's too late. Not this morning, it's gone. And not tomorrow morning, doesn't exist. It's right now. So by the way, to the listeners, yes, seize the day. Think about tomorrow. Just don't care about tomorrow. That's a strong point I hope they hear.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And the words matter, and someone's telling me the words matter, the energy matters, right? It's like you said, think about it, but don't care or don't live in it, right? Because we tend to care and we overthink it, and we're not in the moment, right? Yeah. And I think
this is truly a place of evolution that I have. I do think about tomorrow. I don't worry about it. If it happens, I'll deal with it tomorrow. That's really how I live my life.
And that's part of the surrender, right?
100%.
Yeah, exactly. And to my point, it's being in the moment. You know how long I struggled with this for so long?
No.
It's the overthinking. Oh my God, I have to do. I'm just like, you know what? We're having this conversation. I don't care what happens after this. We're really having this conversation right now. Let's
Yep.
just be moment and truly connect with whatever you're doing. If it's someone else, connect with them, connect with yourself.
Yep.
Right? If you need to journal, if you need to dance,
Yep.
whatever that is.
But all these things we're talking about are literally individual chapters in the book. The whole Carpe Diem story, chapter in the book. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So that's why I hope I don't want to, I always, I don't, I shouldn't say it. I don't get concerned about this, but I'm mindful of the following. We can cover in a short period of time such wonderful ideas for the listeners. And sometimes I wonder, I hope that somebody who's struggling right now doesn't get off the podcast and start thinking about all these things they're going to do, all these chapters of the book they're going to attack, right? Maybe they've been inspired or maybe they have a new idea. And my hope is that we don't cause them to go do all these things and just peanut butter spread it. That's not what we're saying. It's not about spreading it out, you know.
These are just messages that we have from lived experiences, right?
Yep.
To truly navigate it. But when tackling it, like you're to your point, step by step. So what would be that one takeaway message, that one practical step today for someone who's listening to commit to themselves? If they're
This will be my challenge to the audience. And I think this is a perfect place to put it. You and I talked about it before. You mentioned it was one of your favorites. Our brain, the world, society, social media tells us it's about that one more thing you need. A pair of shoes to start running, the extra 5 pounds to whatever. It's about addition. The world tells you it's about addition. And man, if I could encourage you to think about something differently today, more than anything we've talked about, maybe other than forgiveness, would be start practicing subtraction. There's a lot going on in your life right now that you don't need. You need to let it go. And it goes back to that word we talked about surrender. We talked about vulnerability. We danced all around this issue. And I'm going to sum it up by saying practice subtraction in your life. Subtraction is equal to freedom. Subtraction will actually bring about the fruits of spirit in your life, the things you give up: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control, all of the fruits of the spirit. You get that through subtraction, not by chasing it. It's not about addition. And I hope that helps.
Amazing. Excellent. And I love what you said about freedom. That's the point, right?
Yep.
And it's a liberation.
It is a liberation. That's not a word I use, but that's a good one. A liberation.
Yes. It's literally that. And you and I are there. I know a lot of people, I mean, that's what we're here to do, right? Is to help them get that freedom. And like to your point, is subtracting, not adding, right? And that's a very key point that a lot of people don't talk about. And that's a message that's very important that we need to share. So thank you so much for sharing. I think this was a powerful conversation. I love that you shared everything in the right points.
I appreciate it. You had the great questions to set them up.
Yeah, of course. Love this. Let's go into the rapid fire round. So let's see. Okay, so mountains, beach, or desert?
Mountains, beach, or desert? Mountains.
Yes, I love the mountains. Well, the mountains with the beaches for me. So
see, I like all three of them, but right now I'm in this phase of mountains. I don't know why. So today you get mountains. You know?
Amazing. I love that. Awesome. So this is actually something I always read about, but window seat or aisle seat?
I travel all over the world. Aisle seat. I'm leaving for Germany tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Aisle.
Yeah. I love the window seat just because I love looking at the views. But lately I've been liking aisle seats. So amazing. So let me go into, okay. Music while working or total silence?
For sure, music.
Yeah. Amazing. And one thing you always, buy when you travel, like a non-negotiable, or maybe not really buy, what you take when you travel.
Yes. A little small pack of gum.
Yeah, that's key here.
It really is. I always make sure I have a little small pack of gum. I actually never chew gum unless I'm, traveling, believe it or not.
Yeah. Amazing. Awesome. So like I said, oh my God, Scott, this was just wonderful. And thank you for sharing your story, your perspectives, and your depth of your lived experience in the book. So I can't wait to read your book. Like everyone who's listening, please read the chapters in his book. And, it's probably going to just go even deeper and more insightful and more inspiring. So what stands out is that this conversation is But reinvention is not a single decision. It's a continuous willingness to release what no longer fits to who
Okay.
you're becoming, right? Your new self and your new life and your new chapter, right? And that strength is not only about endurance, it's about, vulnerability that we talked about. It's about discernment and knowing yourself really well and loving yourself really well. And that sometimes the most powerful form of progress is not pushing forward. And like, Scott said, it's subtracting. So letting something old fall away first, right? We're always rushing into something, but what do you mean to take away from your life? Any habits, people? And it's very important to have the right people in your corner. And so, for everyone listening, I hope this conversation reminds you that what you're holding on to may not be what's meant to carry you forward, and that's okay. And at the other end, you might not see it immediately, the results. But, like to your point, there's nothing there. But you just have to be in the moment, be present, and you'll realize like that is what fulfillment is and what joy is. And surrender is not failure, it may actually be the beginning of alignment. So, and that becoming often requires letting go before it requires becoming more. So, before we close, I want to share something exciting. So we talk about all of these identity shifts, and I hope you navigate it in Sovereign Rise, which is a global collective I'm creating. And it's officially opening its ecosystem of aligned founders and leaders who are building from identity, intentional, authentic expression. So we host live platforms that go deep into this work and embodied visibility alongside like storytelling and having more of these conversations, right? So you're not here to perform or shrink, but you're really here to become more of who you are. Just be who you are. You don't need to do anything else. And the intention is simple but powerful to create environments where people are supported, not just in what they build, but who they are becoming while they build something, especially with entrepreneurship and business or even authors. So if you're a founder, speaker, thought leader, and you're in that season of we talked about the middle, and you're still trying to navigate it, of course, connect with me and, on LinkedIn, of course, connect with Scott to read his book. That will also help as well. And if you feel called to contribute as like a partner or a collaborator to co-create things together, there's also space for that. So we can continue building intentionally we really value collaboration right now. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Scott, for Voices of Impact. I'm just so honored to have you on the show and very inspiring story. Until next time, honor what is ending, right? And that's okay if it ends. Trust what is emerging and remember what you release creates the space for what you are